Well, hello, welcome back to the summit. I am Dr. Lisa Olszewski. I'm really excited about this presentation for you guys today because we're going to do some deep diving into fasting. But right now, my guest, I'm so honored to have him here. This is Todd White. He is the founder of Dry Farm Wines. So, Todd, welcome to the summit. Go ahead and tell our audience a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm excited to be here. So I actually got in the wine business, in the healthy wine business. We're known as the keto wine.
Yes.
I got in that business because I started experimenting with therapeutic ketogenic diet about 6 years ago. And when I say therapeutic, today I'm on what I would call a modified ketogenic diet. But for probably 3 years, I was very therapeutic with it and experimenting with it. This is before keto became keto, as we know it
Right, before
today,
the buzzwords,
right?
yeah.
So because I've been a biohacker for the last, 30 years, 20 or 30 years, before biohacking was even biohacking, I started experimenting with the Atkins diet in the 1980s. And primarily as a measure of just sort of managing my weight, because I noticed that if I wanted to lose a little bit of weight, then I'd just go on a low carb diet and I would lose weight. But so anyway, I'd been experimenting with it for a long time, but then, keto really rose to the surface 6 years ago in the biohacking world, and biohackers started to experiment with it, and Dr. Dominic D'Agostino and others their research started to emerge. So as a result, when I became kind of what I'd call therapeutically ketotic, then I was having a difficult time with alcohol and wine in particular. Wine was really the only alcohol that I drank at the time, but I haven't drank spirits in about 20 years. And so I thought it was just because of the alcohol. Alcohol's been getting higher in wines over the last 30 years, and now it's almost 15% on average. And so I just started looking for a way to drink lower alcohol wines. And from that, I stumbled quite accidentally. I wasn't even thinking of it as a business. I was just trying to find a better way to live.
Right.
And so I've been a lifelong wine aficionado. I've been drinking wine since I was 20 years ago. I moved to the Napa Valley, I live in the heart of the Napa Valley, which is the most important wine appellation in North America.
Mm-hmm.
I don't drink wines from Napa anymore, but for reasons that I'll describe for you. But so anyway, I started experimenting with, and then accidentally stumbled upon the natural wine revolution, which was really getting underway in central France, and then to lower alcohol wines. And then we started adding additional quantifications like being sugar free and keto friendly, and we're endorsed by every keto leader in the world. And so so going to a ketogenic diet was what took me to becoming the keto wine.
That's huge. And I think so often of us, we all have our own personal story of our health journey, which leads us to exactly where we are today, which is a lot of times not where we thought we were going to end up, right? Sure. So tell us about keto. I know you do a lot of fasting. Did you start out with fasting when you were doing keto, or just like obviously trying to figure out what in biohacking, trying to figure out your numbers the most? How did you?
I went down a similar path many people go down. I mean, it became, it was super into blood testing and, and seeing how high my ketones could get. Right. And not that that's really important. But at the time, it was sort of it was kind of the path many people were going down. So initially I started fasting using what's commonly known as the lean gains method, or the 16-8 feeding window. So fasting for 16 hours and then eating 2 meals in a 8-hour window. And that's very common and super easy to comply to, right? Most people find it very easy to do. About 3.5 years ago, I started on a one meal per day. And I eat that meal between 6 and 7 at night usually.
Okay.
And for me personally, if fasting doesn't work for everybody, keto doesn't work for everybody.
Right.
All right. We got to all experiment with kind of what works for us. For me personally, going from 2 meals a day to 1 meal a day was a major advancement in my overall wellness and productivity, and had so many amazing benefits that I just never turned back. I will say it took 4 to 6 weeks to acclimate to eating once per day.
Okay.
And that was mainly about the emotional aspects of only eating once per day. And so, because with that comes a lot of, social issues, or, it was common for me to have business lunches with people, or, and then eating is entertainment, right? And so you're going to be devoid of this regular entertainment that you had before, right? So it took me about maybe a month or 6 weeks to acclimate emotionally to not eating. By that time, I had lost complete interest in it, right? And I would never dream of eating in the middle of the day today. And so, in fact, it's caused me to further experiment with a number of other fasting regimens.
Yeah.
So now I'm experimenting with only eating Thursday through Sunday and not eating at all on Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday.
Okay.
My last meal on Sunday, I don't eat again until Wednesday night, right?
Okay.
So it's a 3-day fast. I chose 3 days as the cycle. I've experimented with 3-day, 5-day, 7-day, and 10-day. I have stuck to the 3-day because, to me, it seems that I feel I get the most of the benefit in the first 3 days. Okay. Meaning that day 4 and 5 don't feel as strenuous. They feel like I've settled into something more easy, right?
Okay.
And so for me, day 2 and 3 is where I feel the most amount of stress, right? And after that, it gets much easier. So I'm assuming that most of the benefit is coming in the first 3 days. And since I really love to eat, and I'm in the taste business, I love to drink wine. I don't drink wine on days that I'm doing extended fasting. It's water only. I actually gave up caffeine during an extended fast about a year ago.
Okay.
And enjoyed such positive aspects from giving. I've been a lifelong coffee drinker. I was drinking like 3 or 4 cups per day. But the benefit that I got from giving up caffeine was just this steady state of energy throughout the day without any peaks and valleys.
That's huge.
And so, so I only drink water or chamomile tea during an extended fast, but certainly don't drink wine.
Right. That might throw you out a little bit, huh?
Yeah.
How about, what are your numbers doing during that time period for ketones and that? Do you still test all of those?
I don't test often.
Yeah.
If I'm eating a modified ketogenic diet, and meaning that other than potatoes, I don't eat any refined carbohydrate. I don't eat sugar. I don't eat any kind of flour products. I don't eat bread. I occasionally eat French fries a couple times a week because I happen to like them. And I will, what else would I say is modified? So probably potato products are the only thing that really keeps me out of a therapeutic ketogenic diet. That, and my fat is not high enough. So my fat intake would have to go up considerably to get back into what I would call therapeutic ketosis, which for me brings me in at 2.5 to 3.5 millimolar, right, on a blood test. Today, I range anywhere from 0.6 or 7 up to 1.2. So I'm just kind of, even if I'm eating a very modified and lax ketogenic diet, let's just call it very low carb, right? But not enough fat to really be what I'd call, ketogenic. But if I'm eating very low carb, but only eating once per day, I'm always 0.6 or 0.7 millimolar, which is considered nutritional ketosis. I consider 0.5 and above really to be nutritional ketosis. And I think that's a pretty standard understanding from
for
most
sure.
people.
That's what I look at.
So, but that you're going to get there only from eating once per day. So you're going to get there from starvation, if you will. It's not my diet. It's the fact that I'm not eating.
Yeah. And it's also just, as your body adapts, like you can flip into fat burning, if you could have, and that's why you can probably stay into those levels, even with the potatoes, is because your body's adapted so well.
Well, again, I don't eat a lot of them,
right?
But so for me, I'm doing an Instagram live tonight with Mark Sisson, who's
awesome.
who's a longtime friend, and Mark is promoting a lot of. He just wrote a ketogenic diet book. He just wrote a ketogenic cookbook, and he was not ketogenic when I first met him. I've known Mark for about 5 years. He was low carb, but certainly not keto. And then he decided to to write a book about the ketogenic diet.
Yeah.
And now he promotes really what he calls metabolic flexibility, right?
Yeah.
And so he's in ketosis sometimes, he's not in ketosis sometimes. I go deeper in and out, you know, so sometimes if I'm working on, you know, if I'm working on a weight, I like to stay really lean.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I just have to be restrictive because I'm older, you know, my metabolism's slowing down. And like right now with COVID,
Oh geez, right.
I mean, I'm not in the gym and I'm finding I'm running. I run every day, but it's not the same as getting a gym workout where I'm getting serious resistance training, right? And building more muscle and burning more energy. I'm just not as efficient. And so I have had to focus a little bit more on fasting during this period to stay as lean as I want to stay.
Right. And it's also the fact of right now with the stress levels, my God, we turn on the TV, even if we're not like watching TV, but anybody, like if you get a little smidgen of the news right now, cortisol is, you know, skyrocketing. Like that's just what happens.
Yeah. I've taken a different approach to that. I don't watch it.
No.
I read the New York Times in the morning. And I take a look at Business Insider, and that is my news feed for the day. And I just don't watch this nonsense.
Right.
Right. And so it's just going to be more of the same. And if there's anything important to report, it's going to be on the front page of the New York Times. You know, if it's not, then the rest of it's just kind of noise.
Yeah. And that's because unfortunately so many people are like, well, I don't understand why I'm not losing weight right now. Or I'm not, you know, they're going through all of this stuff. And it's like, well, there are hormones in the body that are, you know, we're all under attack right now with our hormones because of the stress levels
the stress is,
we might not even understand, like
I don't think we understand that. I think stress is probably, you know, we like to blame sugar and processed foods, and that's a big part of it for sure. But when you saw heart disease really, you know, start to climb in the 1950s, the post-war revolution of industrial revolution, and then became, you know, sort of the office revolution, is when you really saw, you know, heart disease. This is before processed foods and before, you know, the real spike in sugar consumption. You still saw heart disease really starting to take off at that time. I think it was stress related. You know, just we live in a very stressful world, and more stressful than ever today.
Absolutely.
But certainly sugar, or more importantly, the hyperproduction of insulin is likely the real driver of what we see as the modern health. That's, in my opinion, it's
I agree.
It's the hyperproduction of insulin, and that's the reason you see 80 million type 2 diabetics in the country.
Yeah. So why we've gotten rid of calling adult onset diabetes adult onset, because so many little kids are dealing with it now too.
Well, when you see kids too, and the shape of their pear shape of their body from all these juices that they drink, you know, and you know, when parents think that they're doing something good by giving them juice when it's just really filled with sugar,
right?
You know, and then they get addicted, and then you suffer a lifetime of addiction to sugar. Fortunately, as a child, I was never really interested in sweet things. It just wasn't my palate.
Good.
And so that led to, I mean, I ate sugar as a kid, and as all kids do, or most do, but then after I really restricted it, and which when I became ketogenic, not just low carb, then I also became sugar-free, or largely sugar-free, including, I don't generally eat even commercial salad dressings or condiments or anything that contains sugar. And for
people don't realize there's sugar in their mayonnaise.
There's sugar in everything, virtually. Yeah. Unless it's sugar-free, like our wines are sugar-free.
But but sometimes you have to watch the sugar-free labels, right? But so
if it doesn't say sugar-free, it likely contains sugar.
Right. Yeah.
And it hides in very mysterious ways under very mysterious names.
Yes.
You know, it doesn't always say sugar.
Yes.
Right? And so it's so anyway, it's a real problem. But for me, I just found that living a ketogenic lifestyle, and I can see it in people's face if they tell me they're keto or not. You know, you can tell from the inflammation in their face. Right. Because a lot of people think they're keto, but they're really not. They might just be low carb.
Right.
Right. The only way to know if you're in ketosis, unless you're experienced with it, as I am, and have been in and out of ketosis and been ketogenic for many years, when you can feel it. Right. But otherwise, if you're just getting started, the only way to really know where you are is to measure it, right?
Right.
And in the beginning, you can do that with a urine stick, and it's quite reliable. Over time, that becomes less reliable. And if you're really striving to perform in a ketogenic environment and diet and want to understand more about it, then you're going to want to be doing blood testing.
Right. And determining how your body's adapting to each of those foods that you're eating. Right. I think
Right.
that's the thing is when you start to, and I'm sure, is that basically how you started Dry Farm, was that you realized the wine that you were drinking was completely knocking you out of ketosis?
It wasn't that wasn't the beginning, but most commercial wines and all the best-selling wines in the US, we recently did sugar testing on the top 20 best-selling wines in the United States. Only 2 of them came back within our range of sugar acceptability. Only 2 were sugar-free from our standard, right? Which is less than 1 gram per liter, which is statistically in a glass of wine sugar-free. Only 2 of the 20 met our criteria, right? And so that's, but that wasn't the real cause. The real cause is I was feeling bad from drinking commercial wines, brain fog, hangovers. I thought it was just the higher alcohol, but what I discovered was that there's 76 additives approved by the FDA for the use in winemaking. The reason nobody knows about that, what I call the dirty, dark secret of the wine business, is because the wine industry spends millions of dollars in lobby money in Washington to keep contents labels off of wine bottles. And so that's why you don't know what's really in it, including sugar. There's no nutritional information on it either. And the only way to know if a wine has sugar in it or not is to lab test it, right? Sometimes you can't taste it. Like, we taste wines, they don't taste like they have sugar in them, but then they come back positive for sugar. And that's because there's an acid level in the wine, right? And so that's the, but if you want to drink sugar-free wine, then you buy wine that's been lab tested for sugar and somebody who tells you it's sugar-free. But so no, it wasn't sugar that got me there. It was really, I wasn't even thinking of it as a business. I was just, today we're the largest reseller and importer of natural wines in the world, but I wasn't thinking about it as a business. I was thinking about it as a way for me to feel better and be able to continue to drink wine, because I love drinking wine, but I don't love alcohol. Right. Which is why I drink lower alcohol wines. I like a little bit of alcohol, but I don't like a whole lot. Right. And so for me, I was just trying to solve a problem I had, that I wanted to drink healthier, better wines. That accidentally turned into a business.
Right.
So that was kind of, as these things often do.
Isn't that the case? It's absolutely.
It is a risky business. This is a wine related injury here.
Oh boy, let's hear it.
So it's a cabinet door, but there was some wine involved. But anyway, quite a bit of wine actually. So it's a hazardous sport.
I bet. Well, awesome. They can find more information right at what? Dry Farm Wines?
Yeah, just super simple. dryfarmwines.com. Dry Farm Wines on all social media.
Perfect. Thanks so much for your information today, Todd. It was so great to have you here.
Keep up fasting.
Yes.